Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Steve Ramona. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast. Steve Ramona. We're all about to talk on life. Our guest will share his life story. We want you to success in life. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk on life. We're gonna talk on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are gonna witness. Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. Every episode is an invitation, a reminder that business and life isn't just about profit, it's about purpose. It's about showing up with a servant's heart in every deal and every decision, every day to make a powerful impact on others. Today's guest is going to light you up. You'll be motivated, you'll be challenged, and most importantly, you're going to walk away with tools that inspire action both in your life and the lives of others. Audience, here's your homework. How will you serve yourself and others today? Doesn't have to be a big impact. Even a small act of kindness or courage can change the game. So lean in, take notes. Shout out to my two sponsors, A Mind for All Seasons. Your brain is your greatest competitive edge, and it deserves to perform like one. Want to think faster, remember more, and stay focused longer? Just text the word optimize to 72000. Optimize to 72000 and get instant access to 6 short, powerful videos, each just 3 to 5 minutes, that reveals simple strategies to unlock peak mental performance. Because when your brain is clear, your business grows. And Epic Impact, the storytelling system that helps your message connect and convert, it's just 4 steps. Engage, persuade, inspire, close with clarity. I use it every day for all my messages. Try it free at epicimpact.ai with code STEVE. Change your messages, change your results. Excited to announce Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast was named top 6 in small business marketing. Thank you all of you, my guests and my audience. You've impacted so many people. Let's continue doing that. Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona, and I talk about serving, connecting, building your network. You've heard some of my successes. I've got a guy that's been super successful, even walked away from massive amount of money to serve even more. And I think he's more successful now than he was doing all that success before, because he's all about serving and connecting. Let's bring our guest on. George, welcome to the show.
Brother Steve, I'm so grateful to be here, man. I'm like, we can just record every time we talk and publish it for the world. I could talk to you all day.
That's exactly true. I want you to start with that story that I mentioned just now about you're working with some very wealthy people and you walked away.
Oh yeah, I love that. And I know I'm going to own this for everybody listening. I know this show is short and I would do a 2-hour story on this. So I'm going to curb my answer so that we can actually both speak, because God gave me the gift of gab. I think the way that I'll frame this story is what you just started with, which is I'm more successful now than I ever was then. And I think the reason then that is because my bank account no longer dictates what success is. How peacefully I fall asleep every night and how full my heart is what truly, truly moves the needle. And it just so happens that revenue does follow that when it's in the right priority. And a lot of people know me in this world of like the customer journey guy who scales these businesses, the marketer who scales these businesses. And there were 2 particular companies, and I thought I'd made it, man. I was making $400,000 or $500,000 a month. I had everything. I scaled one of them from $1 million a month to $2 million a day in 18 months, built a team from like 8 to 80. And it's what I love doing, especially the Marine in me, like building teams and creating culture and executing things. And all of it was done around customer journey. But truthfully, what ended up happening is that, I had achieved every accolade. I became a New York Times bestseller of a cookbook. I had a #1 app in the world. I had millions of followers, and I have these successes coming. And the more and more they came, the emptier and emptier I felt. And it was in those moments that I really started to have those like sleepless nights in the hotel, lots of time on airplanes to like really, really reflect and think. And I realized that I was doing nothing for the net positive of the world, except padding people's bank accounts with fiat currency. There wasn't a difference being made in the employees that helped build it or the customers that helped done it. And it always felt off to me, but I didn't have the courage or the perspective to realize that what I was really standing up against is I hate humans feeling or being treated like they're a transaction and being relegated to a number. And I started to realize that what I really believed in is that business is not about selling. Business is about delivering the result that was promised. And if you don't do that, you've failed. Because if it happens in any other industry, it's like going to a restaurant, ordering dinner, and then them not bringing your food out and you being okay paying the bill, and then them gaslighting you that you're upset you didn't get food. And that's what I saw happening in business over and over and over. And it was all for this personal gain, even though it was guised under I care and we give back and do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad your 1% gives back. Well, there's another billion in your bank account and you have underpaid employees that are working so hard that don't have access to these things. And so I talk about this because it wasn't this overnight thing. It was this, I ended up in a moment and I realized like, I can't do this anymore because I was sacrificing my values and what I believed in. And I made a hard decision. My ex-wife was 8 months pregnant and I basically made a decision in 24 hours and it went against everything I was told. She said no, my coaches said no, my business partners said no. And I walked away and I disappeared off the internet for 3 years. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have anything. I walked away from multiple six figures a month and I had enough runway for about 90 days. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just knew I couldn't show up that way anymore. And so that's what really kickstarted what I do now in that transition. And I spent a good 3 years off the internet walking through like the valley of the shadow because I chose a narrow road. It was easy as a marketer to do the upsells, to do the funnels, to do XYZ, to write really compelling copy, to make offers left, right, and center. And I just started realizing I would ask myself every day, I'm like, would I be okay if my grandmother went through this process? Would I be okay if my mother went through this process? Like if my wife came home and said, hey, I went through this funnel or bought this product, would I be okay with how she was treated? And if I couldn't say yes to that, I wouldn't build it, I wouldn't touch it, and I wouldn't help anybody else build it either. And so I became the unpopular guy because I realized that the road to success is not the short road. It's not the shortcut. It's not the hockey stick. It's that the products and services that we make and sell to the world, they're not the solution. They're the bridge that somebody's walking over to get to the solution, but it's our fiduciary responsibility to ensure that they have the best chance of actually achieving that. Not that our product becomes shelf help, not that they end up with another course that they never open, not that they end up on coaching calls for 6 months, addicted to thinking they're broken, but yet nothing in their life has changed. And even for me as a man of faith, it tells me in Matthew that you don't measure a man by their words, you measure it by the fruits. And too many businesses are measured by false accolades instead of the fruit that they produce. And I was like, that's what I want to fight for every day.
Beautiful. And it makes me cringe because how many apps I have on my phone I paid for at $2.99. Yeah, it's not breaking me, but you get 1 million people to do that, you've made $3 million. And what am I getting from it? Probably nothing. Oh,
No.
wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. We talked about before the show. Somebody comes to you and says, George, I love it. I do have this purpose and I have the same thought alignment, but I got to make money, George. I got bills to pay.
Yeah, it's a great question. I love this. And I do get that all the time. And here's the funniest part. Everybody has money to be made, but everybody thinks that money can be created. But money in the equation comes after the equal sign. It doesn't come before the equal sign. Money is a value exchange to some degree. It's, I find somebody with a desire or a problem. I create a roadmap, path, product, or service that helps them achieve that or get one step closer. And as a byproduct of their result or clarity about achieving that result, they will exchange money for that result. All too often, people go about it like, I need money, I need to sell, without thinking through, feeling through what it is that they're actually helping somebody with. And that's the biggest part, right? And we think about this as entrepreneurs. You and I have both been in this long enough to be in this, but if, like when we start as an entrepreneur, it's not like your first idea works. And it's not like you sit behind the laptop for 6 months thinking and strategizing, because you're just going to lose if you do that. Where do you go? You go to the place where you see a problem and you communicate or connect with as many people that have that problem as possible until you find a recipe that solves that problem. And so all too often, I find people getting stuck in this, like, well, I need to make money. I need to make X. I need to make Y. But one of the biggest mistakes that I see entrepreneurs make, and one that I help them with the most, is that I can remind most of them what got them to this level, their first 10 grand a month, their first 100 grand a month. And I will remind them of that, and I will list them all out. And I'm like, great, I just have one question for you. They're like, yeah. I'm like, how many of those things are you still doing today? And they're like, well, none of them. I needed to automate that. I needed to remove myself. I don't have time to do that. And I look them dead in the eye and I'm like, you don't have time not to do that. Because those are the things that actually move the needle, right? Because ultimately, every single buying decision that somebody makes is not a logical decision. It's an emotional decision. Because for a human being to make a commitment, they have to feel safe.
Yeah.
Well, in order for a human being to feel safe, you can't feel safe with a stranger. You need to have a relationship. Well, in order to have a relationship, somebody has to be willing to invest in that relationship so that they have an experience, so that they feel safe enough to pursue the logic that would lead to them committing to something. And so it's the number one thing that I do with people, is understanding that, like, the whole goal in any business is not that I win before you win. You're doing me a service by hiring me. You're keeping my bills paid. You're keeping my team paid. You're helping me live this life, which means you are my priority, which means I operate in the game of that you have to win before I win. That win could be clarity. It could be progress. It could be something to shift in your life. It could be a sample of something. But you have to create a result or see yourself as able to get a result in order to even trust me and pursue that relationship. Once you have that clarity or result, that's what's next, is we have to build a relationship, because relationships is what leads to retention. The retention is what gets you the actual result that you desire. And once you've won something or achieved something is the only time you're actually ever able to refer me, which is where the best businesses are built, is word of mouth marketing that accounts for still 90% of marketing. And everybody tries to skip the game. They'll sell you a product before it even ships to your house. They're asking you for a 5-star review. And I'm like, you want me to review something that I haven't even used yet? Right? Or you're like, hey, tell me somebody that can work with me. I'm like, you want John to go tell his friend to hire you, even though John hasn't gotten a result? How's that work? And so it's the nature of business, is that it has to be a value exchange, but we have to be a steward of that value, and we have to meet people where they are and design a path, which is what I call customer journey, for them to progress towards where they want to go, or one step closer. And so many people try to skip that step. And I don't believe it's unintentional. I believe it's massively influenced by the world that we live in.
Yep.
Thinking that there's shortcuts, thinking that there's easy ways, thinking that AI can replicate you as a human, or that an automation can make somebody feel safe. And I'm like, great. Then men listening to this, do me a favor. Stop communicating with your wife and go design automated text messages that get delivered to her, because you can use send later on the iPhone, once a day for the next 365 days, but don't do anything in between, and let me know how your marriage goes, and let me know how quickly you're living in the doghouse. We wouldn't do it to our partner, but yet we expect when we do it to other people that they're going to somehow magically feel safe with us, or recommend us, or lean into us, or trust us. And so that's kind of the core of how I'd answer that.
It's unbelievable. I've got notes like crazy. So if here's an audience, listen to what he's saying. You're talking to somebody about your business, product or service. Say, hey, Joe, I want you to win first on this XYZ product. How can you win? And then when you win, I win. It's so, excuse my language, ass backwards, but logical. Am I getting this right?
You are getting it correctly right.
I mean, this is what
and here's even why. As much people it is logical, it's actually psychological.
Yeah.
Because here's the craziest thing. When you don't do this, people end up trying to convince somebody of what they desire or what they need. But have you ever realized, like when we grew up, you'd go to the food court in the mall. What did every single one of them have on toothpicks when you walked by?
Sample.
Samples. I used to live off the teriyaki chicken.
Yeah.
and I would taste it. And then I knew what it tasted like. But then here's the craziest part. Next time I was at the mall and I got hungry, did I go to the restaurant that didn't give me a sample? No, because I'd never tasted it. I went to the thing that I'd experienced because it created endowment and a connection to me. Just like when you go to gyms, they're like, hey, come try it for a week. We want you to see it, make sure you like it. But what they're doing is they're getting an experience of it, right? When you walk into Apple, you're allowed to play with every single device, but can you imagine if everything was locked behind a screen like Walmart? You couldn't touch it, you couldn't play with it, you wouldn't buy it. What happens psychologically is when you do this the right way, is you actually make it harder for them to say no and easier for them to say yes, because once somebody has an experience of it, it's no longer thought that they're thinking. It might be like this, it might not be like this. They're like, God, if this is what it feels like on a sales call, if this is what it feels like how they followed up after they met me for the first time, if this is what it feels like after we did the onboarding, can you imagine what it feels like when I'm a client, when I'm in the ecosystem, when I use the product? It's just human nature 101, because humans want to feel seen, heard, understood, loved, and accepted. But if we don't give them that ability, we actually make it harder on ourselves, right? And people have tried this on the internet for years to do it effectively, but they've done it ineffectively. This is where lead magnets were created. Oh, you're not ready to buy from me. Let me give you something in exchange so you can know me. But when was the last time somebody asked, like, hey, what do you value the most? You're like, a PDF I've never opened, a checklist that I could have found on Google, right? There's no shortcuts to it. It has to be something of value, because something has to change in that person's life through their experience for them to have that evidence. If I walked by and all they let me do was smell the chicken, I'm not buying the chicken. I needed to taste the chicken. And so for me, it does go counterintuitive to what most people think and feel. But like, why do we love going to Costco? You ever notice that there's 8 people with free samples, and magically you've never seen the product, you've never heard of the product, and by the time you leave, you have 48 of the product?
All day. You're so right.
And
We've all done it.
the only difference is you tasted it.
Yeah.
And so for me, even in the world of coaching and consulting, which is all I do, I'm the Oz behind the scenes of customer journey and marketing and habits for like some of the best companies. Like, they're like, hey, so what's it like to work with you? I was like, we're not even there yet. How can I help you? Like, what do you need in your business right now? And they're like, well, I can't figure this out. I'm like, great. You have a pen? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, listen, hit record. I got 30 minutes. Let me teach you exactly what you should do. And then 3 months later, they're like, okay, how do we do more of this? I need more of this in my life. And then when they leave and they go get on calls with 6 or 7 other people, and they're like, oh, I won't give you any advice till you pay me. No, we don't do that till you're onboarding. Like, no, you got to come into the house first. They always call back. And it's never because of what I shared with them. It's how I made them feel and how I improved upon the silence. Like, that's a relationship. Relationships are selfless, not selfish. Relationships are about what can I give, knowing that person can give nothing back to me. That's like the true nature of a relationship. And if you do business that way, is it easy? No. Is it worth it? 100%. And you can't lose the game. It's impossible.
Well, and you're doing with this coaching and anything that's a service, you just did the food sample, but your food sample was spend 30 minutes with me, feel me out, no charge. Let me give you some value. You can't just spend 30 minutes and go, how long have you had kids? That's not the relationship you're talking about. The relationship of bringing value to somebody. They walk away going, George is a freaking rock star. We're going to run with it. Okay, I've been talking about this for years. Where have you been in my whole life?
I don't know, but I'm glad we're connected now. But like, here's the funniest part.
Cool.
Think about it with cars.
Okay.
How many of you test drive cars before you buy them?
I just did it 6 months ago.
All of you. But can you imagine if you weren't allowed to? Right? Like, you think about it. You go into a lower level dealership, a used car lot, they're trying to force you into a car. You go into a BMW and they're like, what do you want to look at? You want to take it for a test drive? Hey, let us know when you want to come drive it again. What they're doing is they're giving agency. And when you give agency, that choice is 100 levels deeper than force. Because the person's choosing it based on their experience. They're not choosing it out of force and coercion.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was at an event a couple months ago and I almost lost I probably like, if I didn't believe in Jesus, the old Marine would have came out, I would have got arrested for assault. I heard a guy literally telling this story. This was this sales conference, and he's like, "Oh, dude, I had the best clothes ever." This woman's like, "I can't buy because I have to talk to my husband first." And he's like, "I didn't let her get off the phone. She ended up in tears, and she said yes." And I looked at him and I was like, "That's disgusting." And I was like, "Not only did you emotionally abuse somebody, you created a rift in their marriage and caused permanent damage. You took away all agency, you took away all choice, and it was all manipulation. And what most people don't think about is the long-term effects of that." So for everybody listening to this right now, think of a product or a service that you've bought or committed to that you weren't ready for. And now ask yourself how much you still value it. Did you still use it? Did you buy another one? Did you sign up again? No, because everybody's playing that short game and thinking that they're going to win the long one, but they're actually preventing the long one from ever being positive because they're killing the short one. And so they end up in these businesses and like, "No, my business is great. Look what I'm bringing in every month." I'm like, "Call me in 6 months." And when your bottom line has now caught up to your top line, you're going to realize why. Because the best businesses are not built on acquisition. They're built on retention. There is not one business model that exists that says we win because we can acquire customers and not keep them. Every business is built on retention. Retention is built on relationships and respect. But you cannot disrespect somebody at the start and then re-earn their respect. Maya Angelou said it better than anybody. No one remembers what you said. They always remember how you make them feel. And so if you damage that on the front, it takes years, if even possible, to recover back to ground zero. But the best analogy or metaphor I ever heard was from this like wise quote that I read. And it says, you can hit a nail into a fence, but when you pull the nail out, the hole is still there. And no matter how much wood filler and paint you put over it, the integrity of that wood is never the same as it was before the nail went in. And that's the damage most people are causing to their businesses or to their reputation without realizing it.
And they're scrambling. And COVID put a big nail in the coffin for people because they did for years. And then COVID came and the people realized. Well, let me ask you this question. It just came to my head about the customer side. We're talking the business side. What can a customer do? What do you suggest a customer do so they don't get pitched? Let's just use that word, with no value.
I love this. I love this. I think the first answer that hits my intuition is you got to advocate for yourself, but you have to be willing to have conviction and a backbone, right? Here's a good one. If you ask somebody a question and they mindset gaslight you out of answering that question, that's a red flag. If you tell somebody that you need time and they say no, imagine if that happened in your relationship. That would be considered emotional abuse. You have your wife be like, "I need space. I need you to leave me alone for 24 hours," and you disrespect her and you put pressure. That's emotional abuse. Yet somehow we accept it in business, right? If there's anything that feels like force, it's not for you because that's manipulation and convincing. The things that are supposed to be, they have to happen at their own time. And I think that there's two reasons that this happens. There's complacency and complicitness, right? There are marketers and business owners that still operate this way because they know it works. They know that fear works. They know that pressure works. But they're not the only guilty party. The complacency is all of the people, myself included sometimes, that still fall victim to it and say yes and don't advocate for myself, which allows that process to still continue. We vote with our attention, our time, and our dollars. But if something doesn't feel good, there's a reason God gave you spidey senses. Things that tickle in the bad way don't ever stop tickling with time. They typically start hurting worse. And it goes from a tickle to a tingle, and then it goes from a tingle to torture. And by the time you realize it, you're like, what did I do? So anything that's supposed to be, anything that feels good, anything that doesn't feel that pressure is the right way to do it. But as a consumer, you have every right to advocate for yourself. You have every right to take as much time as you need. This is coming from a guy who teaches sales and does high ticket coaching. I am the first one to tell somebody like, George, I want to work with you. I'm like, you can't, not yet. I'm like, do me a favor, take 30 days. Think about it. Text me whenever you want. Ask me any questions you need. But I want you to revisit this in 30 days and make sure that you are a full yes, not an emotional yes. Because that's what I want. I want people that want to be with me, not people that need to be with me, because it changes the dynamic. But it requires that all of us advocate for ourselves and we be willing to not play the game. And so I think that that's how I would answer that.
Well, you gave them value by telling them no. You said no, but here's more value. And you're getting zero from it, except
Zero.
God's love, I call it God's currency. Uh, wow, this because I think two things to customers. One, they don't treat, especially restaurants and grocery stores, customers, we talk about customer service, but the customer is not always right. And totally, okay. We're so aligned because we may talk, I want to write a book about that because you can't be a yelling customer and think everything's going to be right. Vice versa with a business too, right?
Yep. And I think to your point, this is huge. And it's so funny you say that. We are way aligned. I always use a restaurant as an example to explain the relationship things. And I ask everybody when I keynote, I'm like, how many of you have ever been to a restaurant, had excellent food, but subpar service? Put your hands up. They all put their hands up. I'm like, great. Now keep your hands up if you recommended that restaurant to a friend. And all the hands drop. And I'm like, cool. Next question. How many of you have ever been to a restaurant with sub-quality food and exceptional service? Put your hands up. Everyone's hands go up. I'm like, how many of you have recommended that restaurant to a friend? Keep your hands up. And none of the hands go down. We don't make recommendations based on the product. We make recommendations based on the relationship with the people who own the product. And to your point about the customer's not always right, never. But the customer always demands respect. And our job is to be the emotional barometer, not to meet them at their level. You can yell at me, you can scream at me. Doesn't mean I got to do it back. I can use respect. I can use communication. And so this is the nature of business at every single degree. And one of the things that I always tell my clients and everyone I keynote on my podcast, the easiest way to understand this is if your business was a brick and mortar business, would you treat people the same way that you do online and expect there to be a result? Right? Like imagine somebody walks in the front door of your business and they're like, hey, Steve, I have a question. And you stare at them, don't answer their question and pretend they don't exist. Would you expect them to grab a product off the shelf and buy it? And you're like, no. I'm like, great. So what do you think happens to those 100 people that shoot you DMs or emails and you ghost them because they haven't paid you yet? They can't pick the product up off the shelf and buy it because you didn't establish that relationship or communicate. Or imagine upsells. Oh, upsells drive me nuts. But imagine you go to the grocery store, you pick up a bushel of bananas and a dozen eggs and a loaf of bread, and you get to the register and you check out. And I'm like, Steve, you're like, George, it's $29.77. I'm like, amazing. Here's my credit card. I walk away with my bags and I get to the door and there's another employee that says, hey, wait, George, do you want a dozen more eggs for half the price? And I look at him and I'm like, no, if I wanted them, I would have taken it off the shelf. I haven't eaten the 12 that I bought. And then I leave the door, I get to my car, I open the trunk of my car and an employee chases me down and says, wait, how about 4 dozen for a quarter of the price? And at that point, I get arrested for assault. That would happen at a grocery store. But yet, what does everybody teach online? Oh, the moment you get them, it's like a trial close. You got them, now upsell them and do X. But we'd feel disrespected if it happened to us in person because it wouldn't match our needs or our desires. But yet we think it's okay to do online. And so I always give everything the real life test. I'm like, if your coaching offers were on a shelf behind you, would you treat people online the same way as if they would walk through your store? And they're like, no. I'm like, cool. What if no traffic was coming into your store? Would you just stare at them out the window? They're like, no, I'd go outside and talk to people. I was like, oh, so you do believe in outbound marketing? And they're like, oh, I'm like, oh, you mean like nobody owes you it? Like you actually have to go do something and exchange something to get somebody's attention? And so I think it's a really powerful litmus test that most people forget to run on themselves because the internet isn't a world that exists outside of our world. It is a world that speeds up the process of things that have always happened in our world. And so when you're speeding up that process, you either them leading them closer to you or you're pushing them further away from you, but you have the ability to control it.
I feel dirty right now in a good way.
Mhm.
because I'm not dirty, because I love what you're saying. And I talk to restaurant managers all the time. We're coming to the end here, and ask how many times you've been, because I'll go grab a, this is what I do, and we'll talk about it later too, but I'll grab a waiter, and when she's fantastic or he's fantastic, go grab it your manager. Well, why? Just grab it. I do that, a litmus test. I'm going to borrow that. And you can see them talking, going, oh my, what'd you say? What'd you do? First, it goes, what'd you do wrong?
Yep.
Every single time.
Every time.
And then the manager comes over, crouching, what's your name? We share names. What happened? I said, the greatest, one of the best waitresses, talked to my wife. And you know what I asked the next question? How long have you been here? Oh, about 5 years. How many times do you get compliments from your wait staff? Once a year. 100 managers. And it's on and on and on. And it's, the world is like that. And I want to change it with you. And we're going to come to the end. I'd love to bring you back for a sequel.
Bro,
if you,
I could do 20 of these with you. I have an
okay.
entire library. We'll do a series. I am so in, Steve. I love this.
This is so good. Okay. So let's end with improv. Always like this fun question. So I'm reserved a table at a restaurant, me and you're going to sit at. I want you to invite 3 people, dead or alive, who've been influential in your life. You've met a lot of people. Might be hard for you. Those 3 people, but more important, what food are we eating?
Oh, okay. The 3 people are Jesus. Number 2 is Teddy Roosevelt. And number 3 is my father, rest in peace.
Amen.
Some of the 3 most influential people in my life, and the wisdom, their view of the world for completely different reasons. And because I am an inner fat kid and I used to weigh 100 pounds more and I will always be fat on the inside, it's going to be the most random menu that you've ever seen in your life. But it's going to start with like home-baked cheese popover rolls, because there are bone-in ribeyes coming for dinner with an assortment of sides, caramelized onions, a homemade béarnaise sauce. And then instead of the traditional dessert, I'm doing chocolate chip pancakes for a dessert.
I'm glad I had lunch already. I'd be starving after this show. Holy mackerel.
I get the salt, the fat, the acid, the sweet. I got all of it. I got all of it.
Well, congratulations, your weight loss too.
Thank you.
That's a whole nother thing we could talk about.
That's a whole nother
how
one.
you can serve people with health. I know people, God bless you, first of all. You've enlightened me. I know other people listening to enlighten me. You care so much. It means a lot to me, because I'm going to follow you. And how can people connect with you and learn more and follow you?
Yeah, brother, I love this question, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I give out my personal email on podcasts. I tell you, if you DM me, it's me responding. If you have any question, if I can help you in any way, please reach out to me in the 2 easiest places. The pinkest website you will ever see in your life is my website. It's my favorite color, mindofgeorge.com. My podcast is there. I share all this stuff for free. There's a forum that says work with me. You don't have to work with me. Go straight to my calendar. Don't worry about pass and go. Don't pay $200. Go straight to my calendar for us to get a virtual cup of coffee. Or if social media is your jam, Instagram is the best place. I would tell you LinkedIn, but I'm banned for life. That's a whole other story. If you want to know, just DM me. But my Instagram is It's George Bryant. So the It's is included, or else you get a like 94-year-old realtor in Michigan. So it's George Bryant. But if you shoot me a DM, if you have a question, if I can help you in any way, I genuinely mean it. The door is open. And if I could read your mind, I would answer it for you, but I can't unless you send it to me. And so the invitation is there.
I tell you what, George, I'm going to do something that you're going to love. And I'm not doing it because you're going to love it. So the first 3 people that reach out to George, whether way you reach out, mention this podcast, I'm going to send you a free book on success. One of my friends wrote, because I know he can change your life, but you got to take the action to do it. And if I have to reward you with a little gift, to do that, I want to do that, because if you've listened to this whole podcast, everybody, you know that he can help. He's helped me tremendously. And I thought I was doing good. I got so much more to do, which I'm happy to do. George, thanks again. What a blessing. Audience, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to George's podcast. What's your podcast again?
The podcast is called The Mind of George Show, because I believe my brain belongs in a straitjacket, so I only share the safest parts with you.
There you go. Well, subscribe to our YouTube channels. And here's why. These podcasts are actual gifts. We're talking about value and impact. That's what George is talking about for the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes is impacting people. Well, you're listening to George and go, my friend can really learn from George. Send them the link. Listen to George. Even if they don't listen to pipe, take 10 minutes, miss the front, miss the back, just listen to the bulk of the 10 minutes. And it impacts their life and changes them, or they reach out to George. You've just given them a gift.
Amen.
We're not doing that enough in this world these days. So I'm going to get off my pedestal. We're going to thank me and George. Want to thank everybody for watching or listening. Please look forward to watching or seeing you at the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone. Give, give, give.